Imagine being trapped for years on a floating prison, rotten food, brutal punishments, and a captain who holds the power of life and death. This was life in the age of sail. And sometimes, when human endurance reached its breaking point, the crew would make a terrible choice: obey and die slowly, or rebel and risk the gallows. This video explores the harsh realities of naval history and the extreme actions taken by sailors under duress. It is presented for historical education and understanding. Life aboard a naval vessel in the 18th century was a test of survival. The food was often infested with maggots, water turned green and foul, pay was withheld for years, and the law was enforced by the cat-o'-nine-tails, a whip designed to tear the flesh from a man's back. The captain was an absolute dictator at sea. His word was law. A minor infraction could lead to a brutal flogging. A serious one, like striking an officer, meant death by hanging. This system of absolute power created a pressure cooker of fear and resentment. In 1797, aboard the British frigate HMS Hermione, Captain Hugh Pigott's cruelty crossed all lines. In a fit of rage, he ordered several elderly sailors to be flogged for moving too slowly, and even threw one overboard to his death. For the crew, this was the final straw. That night, the crew snapped. In a frenzy of long-suppressed rage, they rose up. They hunted down the hated officers and the captain, killing them and throwing their bodies into the Caribbean Sea. It was one of the bloodiest mutinies in British naval history. The mutineers then did the unthinkable. They sailed the ship into enemy Spanish waters and handed it over. They had chosen certain poverty and exile over another day under Pigott's command. Not all mutinies were reactions to past cruelty. Some were preempted. In 1842, aboard the USS Somers, Commander Alexander Mackenzie became convinced that a 19-year-old midshipman, Philip Spencer, was plotting a mutiny for mere piracy and thrills. Based on rumors and a few scribbled notes, Mackenzie arrested Spencer and two sailors. Fearing his ship was on the verge of rebellion, he made a drastic decision. Without a formal trial, he ordered all three hanged from the yardarm. The execution sent shockwaves through America. Was it a necessary act to save the ship, or a paranoid murder? The subsequent court-martial became a national spectacle, questioning the very limits of martial law at sea. These mutinies, while brutal, were not in vain. They exposed the rotting core of the naval establishment to the public. Reformers in Britain and the United States began to ask, were such draconian measures truly necessary? Gradually, change came. Flogging was abolished. Pay and rations were improved. Captains' absolute power was curtailed. The Navy began to understand that a crew treated with basic humanity was more loyal and effective than one ruled solely by terror. The story of naval mutinies is a stark lesson in the dangers of absolute power. It shows us that when authority becomes indistinguishable from tyranny, it sows the seeds of its own destruction. These sailors, pushed beyond human limits, remind us that the line between order and rebellion is thinner than we think. Which historical system of power do you think was the most oppressive? Share your thoughts in the comments. For more stories of rebellion and survival from the past, subscribe.